Chapter 18 Pax Romana. He was done for. Sergeant Alexander Renoir knew it the instant he returned to the living. At first he could not place himself. He was laid out. His head ached. A heavy weight sat across his chest, pinning him to the ground, paralyzing him there, crushing him into freezing cold mud. The axe handle that knocked him unconscious had rattled his brains severely. As he grasped at the threads of the story that brought him here, trying to string them together, laughter chattered out from the darkness. Slap! An open-handed strike was not gentle. He saw stars and felt the smack of the palm and all 5 fingers. The entire side of his face left hot and stinging. Slap! The wide smile of the man slapping him back to wakefulness gleamed down. The smile was all that shone out of the blackness, like some demonic minstrel show. A German shrapnel helmet cast the Caucasian face in shadow, while the grey of the soon-coming morning sky above him made the towering trees and the other men encircling them pitch-black silhouettes. But the teeth of the slapper caught some reflected light and flashed it down to him, a joyful promise of misery. Done for, done in, undone. Ça ne fait rien. Renoir started to slip out of consciousness again, but the smiling, slapping dead man smacked him again, and the sting of it, the sharp pain of his own teeth cutting into the side of his mouth, brought him back up from the depths. Renoir stared up into black eyes. Then the slapper stepped away, disappearing from his line of sight. Moments later, Renoir felt a tiny trickle of ice-cold water running beneath him, straight down his spine. It stirred him to wakefulness more than the slapping had. It slowly saturated his entire backside. When he looked down, he saw that a large, dead tree trunk was lying across him, driving him into the damp earth. He worked his legs, trying to see if he could move the thing, but there was no way to shift his arms and gain purchase to push. Even had he succeeded in getting a grip, the trunk must have weighed 200 kilos. The sounds of men coming over mushy ground sloshed toward him. Stones crashed in and around his shoulders and neck. The slapper's face smiled down at him. Herr Renoir, we have brought you gifts. More men arrived, more stones piled around his head. Do you remember me, Herr Renoir? The stones around his neck made it difficult for Renoir to shake his head no. The smiling man reached down and slapped him hard. Do you know me? Renoir shook his head again. No, I do not. Another rough slap. Yes, you do. Think on it with the time you have left. Renoir closed his eyes. The past flooded his mind. Sleep had not come easy the night Renoir returned to Liège and found his world turned upside down. Sebastian Strathman's company had moved on and left their crucified message to Belgium's franc-tireur in their wake. From the distance, Renoir wondered what the crows were circling as he drove the wagon team toward his adopted home. When he reined in at the crossroads and found young Felix's slack-jawed, nailed-up teenage corpse staring back at him, he had his answer. As Renoir lay in his soft bed that night, Felix's face would not leave his mind. Each time he tried to succumb to slumber, Felix was there, waiting, whispering to him from the cross. Renoir's family line stretched back far. He came from ancient Gallic chieftains. In 58 BC, they stood against Julius Caesar and were nearly wiped from the earth. Through sheer determination, they survived the crush of the legions and carried on, outliving the Pax Romana that followed. In 507 AD, they helped unite the Franks and slaughtered hordes of Visigoths when they came to plunder. They rode beside Charlemagne as he laid waste to Europe, standing by him as he built the vast Carolingian Empire. They charged into English arrows on horseback at Hastings and violently crushed the rebellion at Brule. They sailed for the Holy Land, time and again, laying siege to Jerusalem and to Damascus and to Acre. They killed and died at Crécy and Agincourt and countless other battlefields scattered over blood-saturated European soil. In his dreams, Renoir was all of those men, and in each dream, Felix was beside him, his squire, in each lifetime, handing him his helmet or his Carolingian sword or his lance, the last face he saw before spurring his war horse into battle. Léonie found Renoir sitting on the front stoop the next morning, spent. Her slumber too had been a series of dark, bloody nightmares. She sat beside him on the stoop. They were silent for a long time. A lark sang out in the distance. A circling kestrel replied. Finally, Renoir spoke. "There is cash in a box beneath my bed, divided equally among the girls. We will leave before dawn tomorrow." "We are leaving?" asked Léonie. Renoir nodded. "This peace we have negotiated will not hold. It will turn ugly, and we will be trapped. I cannot keep you safe. I'm sorry." Léonie digested that. She felt a chill in the pit of her stomach. She nodded. "We will be ready." But it was already too late. That night, after the witching hour, Renoir pulled Philippe's wagon team to a stop by the winding Meuse River. He dragged the lost rifle box out of the wagon and used a crowbar to open it. He took a mothballed Martini Henry rifle out and rested it on the buckboard, along with a leather bandolier of ammunition. Then he shoved the crate of rifles, sending it tumbling over the mossy stone edge of the bridge. It splashed down, vanishing into the dark green water's depths. Renoir drove the wagon to the goat trail that led to the Chateau de Bois in safety, then returned to his house on foot to fetch Léonie and the other girls. He could see the light from his house from 3 blocks away. It was on fire. The chaos that Renoir predicted to Léonie arrived much sooner than he thought it would. The Saxon lieutenant colonel Renoir had come to an accommodation with, a man who Captain Paul Becker would testify against at a court-martial several years later, standing witness to the trial's violent culmination in a firing squad execution. He'd been sent forward into France with his regiment, a company of Prussian cavalrymen, hungry for war, turned to a fever pitch for action, had arrived that night and taken over command of the sector. In their hasteful desire to lead his company onward to battle in France, the Saxon lieutenant colonel had failed to make his arrangement with Renoir known to them. The Prussian cavalry settled in, supped, and passed the flask. Rumour spread around the fire of a house of ill repute of high regard in the town. As the flask continued to make its rounds, the soon high-spirited boys decided that an adventure was in order. The adventure went amiss. Renoir's house burned. Renoir watched it all go up in flames. When the last fire had gone to embers and ash, with no sign of survivors, he turned and walked away. In the woods, he freed Philippe's team of horses from the wagon and saddled the stoutest mare. He slung the Martini Henry over his shoulder and rode into the forest, away from Liège, heading west, his destination and intent certain.